Darrel, thank you for your time. So the question first would be is, what kind of future issues are we possibly going to have with the technology and children, and the effect it may have on their consciousness? Has anything ever come through around the technology?
Yes, I mean, Bashar has talked about the idea that, the technology is always a reflection of where our consciousness already is. So when we start exploring the idea that our consciousness is something more than just the physical world, you start seeing technologies and science and physics start exploring those things too. So everything in physical reality is basically a reflection of where we happen to be at any given moment. So I think when we see what's going on in technology, in physics, we can sort of see a pattern of where we're heading. And a lot of it, in my opinion, in my observation, is exactly kind of where Bashar is coming from. We're evolving to some place where we're going to ultimately experience technology in much the same way that they do, which again, from their point of view, is a direct reflection of where they're at in their consciousness and their evolutionary state. So I do see that progression.
And what does the future look like for our children?
Well, again, it depends on what kind of a world we choose, what kind of choices we make. But I choose to focus on the idea that the more we know we are creating our reality, the more we take responsibility for the creation of our reality, the more we experience ourselves holistically. I can only imagine that that kind of a future will be a very positive, expanding, and constructive one. And if we teach our children that they are as powerful as they need to be to get whatever they need in life without hurting themselves, without hurting anyone else, teach them the consequences of the choices they make in a safe way, start creating more interactive education where we adapt the lessons to their excitement instead of trying to take their excitement and box it up into the lesson. I think you'll see quite an explosion of abilities, quite an expansion of them being able to make the kind of choices that would make this a much more positive world.
Are we having a spiritual crisis on this planet at the moment? Because mental health it's in a bad state at the moment. Suicide rates are extremely high. Is this because people are not living their purpose and they're looking for an escape route?
I believe so. It's not so much that the crisis is I know what you mean by spiritual crisis, but in fact it's actually a lack of spirituality that's creating the crisis. Yes. So the spirituality would be the antidote to the crisis, where people have been taught for so long to disempower themselves, give their power away, not believe that they're worthy, find an empty feeling within themselves that they try to fill with things that don't fill that up.
That's where addictions come from. But if they would actually understand how powerful they are and feel the connection that they have to creation, to existence, then I think that dimension of spirituality, that dimension of conscious awareness, is what exactly would dissolve the crisis that we're going through right now.
What would Bashar think is the most common emotion at the moment that's trapping us?
Well, it's not so much the emotion itself that's trapping us, it's the belief that generates negative fear-based emotions. So when we can use our emotions, even fear, to get in touch with what kind of beliefs we would be holding on to, maybe even unconsciously, that then generate the fear, then we're using fear in a positive way to put us in touch with what it is we need to change within our belief system in order to let go of those negative beliefs, and then of course experience no fear from that point forward, because we understand how these things work and we use them in positive ways as indicators of when we're out of alignment with ourselves, which is all that fear is. It's an indicator you're out of alignment with something within yourself. So using it in that positive way, I think, would allow us to move forward in a very expanded way.
We talk about synchronicities and maybe our higher self. How do we know what these signs are? We can talk about 1111, we can talk about music that comes on the radio. Who's that coming from? Is it coming from the universe, the collective consciousness, our higher self?
Mostly us, our higher selves, and it's giving us kind of a road sign. It's usually, in general, and I'm not saying there can't be other reasons for why we experience synchronicity in the way we do. Mostly I take them, especially the numerical ones, as road signs that we're in that moment, we're in the right state, we're in alignment with our path, with who we are. So they're kind of like just little reminders, like, okay, whatever state you're experiencing when you have that synchronicity, that feeling you get, it's like, oh, you know, there's meaning here, there's something profound here, something going on, I'm feeling more in touch with the universe. That's the state to stay in and come from in all the actions that you do. So we're giving ourselves from the higher mind these constant reminders, maybe even from spirit guides, these constant reminders of what the state is that we need to come from to truly express our truth and ourselves in life.
Do you, or can you, channel Bashar when it's just you and have a conversation?
I don't need to go into the full channeling state if it's just for me, because I receive it telepathically. And that's what happens even in the channeling state. Anything that he is answering a question for, the concept is instantly fully there. It just takes a moment for it to unspool into our language. So my brain is acting as a translation device, but I've got the concept immediately in the way I need to understand it. And that's why time for me in the channeling state is very collapsed. When I'm channeling, let's say for an hour or two, when I come out of it, if I have to guess how much time has passed, you know, let's say for an hour, I might say, well, I feel like I've only been here for maybe 20 minutes. That's what it feels like to me. So the information comes in nuggets of these whole concepts, in these downloads, but then I understand I'm in the channeling state because the information needs to be translated for the audience. But if it's just for me, it's just there. Yeah.
Could there be millions of people on this planet channeling, but they don't actually realise it? I mean, we all have this voice in our head. So how do you know? How do you differentiate between what's your voice?
In some senses, it doesn't matter as long as the information is guiding you in the way that you feel you need to be guided. We are all channeling. In fact, in a sense, we are constantly channeling our personalities into existence, because a personality is an artificial projection or a construct of our greater consciousness. So we actually are all in a channeling state to some degree. But in terms of the way we think of channeling, it is a specific brainwave frequency, and anytime anyone does anything they really are passionate about, they love to do deep meditation, or they get into what, you know, we say the zone, they're usually in a channeling state, which in brainwave frequency is called the gamma state, between 40 and 100 cycles per second. That's where your brain starts synthesizing information and making stronger associations and processing information in a very different way that allows you to make connections to concepts that you might not ordinarily make. And that's where all creative flow comes from, that state, and so on and so forth. So channeling is a very natural thing we all do, especially when we're doing something we love to do.
So when you find that emotion that you just described, is that your purpose, and that's what you should be doing?
That's the message from the higher mind. The language of the higher mind is energy. And so when you feel that something has that passion associated with it, the higher mind is saying, this is you. This is your compass needle pointing to your magnetic north. If you act on it, you're willing to do that, then you're using the language of physical reality to answer. It has to be a physical action. You have to take action on it, or you're not really responding to the higher mind. Because if you're just thinking about it or talking about it and not doing it, then you're not really having a dialogue back and forth with the higher mind. So being willing to know that that's what the higher mind is guiding you for, and being willing to act on it completes the circuit and allows you to experience more and more and more expansion and be more capable of receiving more information that way from the higher mind in a continuing, ongoing process.
Sounds so simple.
It is simple.
Common sense. Difficult to do, but maybe we should teach it in schools.
I agree. That again, that was the thing I was talking about before, is children need to understand they are powerful. They need to understand that they are more than just this physical being. They need to understand how to make positive and constructive choices in their lives. They need to understand what belief systems are and how they work. And they need to really be allowed to use their excitement to learn what they need to learn, because when something is exciting to a child, they're going to want to learn. You know, it's how they want to learn. So when we start adapting the lessons to their passion instead of trying to crush their passion into the lesson, they're going to want to learn, and they're going to learn really expansive concepts.
Has Bashar indicated to you when he's never going to leave you, because we're all oneness? I'm beginning to understand that concept. But has he signalled there's going to be a point in the future where he maybe channels somebody else, or
No.
is he with you now until?
The only idea is, I mean, I don't know what kind of presentation or experience or expression might change over time, but remember that this is ultimately leading up to the idea of open physical contact with them. I mean, obviously, if he's here, you can just talk to him directly. So that would, to me, be the only reason that the idea of the channeling would change, is I no longer have to necessarily be the go-between. He'll be right there to answer your questions physically. But I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen.
Has he ever presented himself in a physical form or an image in your mind?
I've seen him in my mind that way. And, you know, they're about 5 feet tall. Heads are slightly larger than ours. Eyes are bigger, nose smaller, mouth smaller, ears smaller. Relatively pale, very slender. They're a hybrid race between human and what we call the Greys. But I've seen him in dream encounters that way. And that's what allowed me to be able to
recreate the image, or explain to computer artists to recreate his image for the first contact documentary that we created. Because then that way, if I don't translate that into something other people can see, they never see what I see in my head. Plus, when he's describing himself or his planet, I get to see what he's describing. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a sign, as the universe telling me to wrap it up. Can you look into the camera, please?
Absolutely.
And some advice to people that are going through this spiritual awakening. They don't come to these kind of conferences, that they are really just awakening up. They feel alone, depressed, anxiety, stress. I know how that feels when you first awaken.
Sure.
What can we say to them?
I think it's very important to understand how important it is to really act on your passion, because that is the vibration of who you really are. As Bashar often says, really truly, even though we experience, because of our belief systems, great difficulty in being our true selves, in fact, the most difficult thing you can possibly try to be is someone you're not. So when you can let go of all of the limitations, all the ideas, all the fear-based negative belief systems that hold you back from being yourself, you're also depriving other people of the gifts that you have to give. Because it's very important for the rest of the world that they can see in all of us living examples of what it's like to live your joy and be your true self. And that's the best way to help anyone else. So please don't hold back, live your joy. It will support you if you really understand that it can. And I would encourage everyone to do so.
Can consciousness be seen? Can it be touched? Can it be measured? Have we got the capabilities to do that yet?
Wow, that's a difficult question. You know, can consciousness be measured? Well, you know, we are conscious, and we define consciousness as self-awareness. And in that sense, because we exist and we notice it, that it's there, in that sense, it is measured by us every day. Can it be quantified directly, like from an external device that could measure it? I think that some of the physics I'm writing are starting to lead us towards that possibility. We're discovering that consciousness is like a feedback of information that's fundamental to the structure of space-time, that it is at the source of the material world, that it produces protons, electrons. The material world is literally the result of information transfer across boundary structures. And the idea that consciousness then is a field of information that's interacting with us, that it's not an epiphenomena of the brain, but that the brain and the whole body is like an antenna tapping into a field of consciousness, leads to the possibility that eventually we will be not only able to measure it and quantify it, but as well tap into it with technology artificially to produce something remarkable, extraordinary.
I keep having conversations in my mind, as we all do here. Is consciousness, the soul, is it the same thing?
Yeah, I think as well that the same equation starts to say that like what people call the soul or spirit or consciousness are just a set of information in space-time, a specific set of information in space-time that is individualized, right? That's experiencing the world from its own perspective and so on, and that it can be isolated from the body even, and because information cannot be destroyed. So maybe what we call the soul is this information in space-time that is a representation of a consciousness.
Okay. We've got current technology, future technology maybe coming into the next 10, 15 years. What impact is this technology going to have on our children and the children's children over the coming decades? Mm-hmm. How's the technology going to have an impact on their consciousness?
Well, it all depends what we do in the next 10 years, 15 years. It's really going to make a big difference. We're like at a cross point where we can continue to insist on using and developing technology that has self-destructive outcomes, or completely go a different route. And I think that's what we're doing, and I think that's the choice we're making. There's new technology that's emerging that's based completely on a different set of understanding of the physics of the universe. And this technology has the potential to pull humanity completely out of the conundrum that they've put themselves in, with our environment, with our resources, with our capacity to produce energy, to travel, and for motivation to go around the world, or even to go in the universe and colonize other planets and all this. It's not going to happen with fossil fuel, burning oil, and so on. It's going to happen with something remarkably different, and that technology is emerging. And if it's allowed to be, and I believe it will be, if it brought into the world appropriately and it's supported, it will completely change the life of only the next generation. And it's emerging now, and they'll be able to produce energy anywhere they are, directly out of the structure of space-time, control gravitational field, travel through the solar system, and all this. So it's going to completely change.
Is that what our ancient ancestors was potentially doing? If we talk about Erich von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods and his theories, is that what has already happened on this planet, do you think?
There's a lot of evidence that there was a pre-cataclysmic civilization on this planet, and the evidence is mounting now, becoming more and more evident, not just to bleeding edge researchers, but to the mainstream academic archaeological community and anthropology and so on, that like there was an advanced civilization prior to our current civilization on our planet that left evidence of their passage on our planet, that left evidence of their level of technology, and it was remarkable. And it most likely included gravity control, because extraordinary large, massive material was moved and arranged in structures that we couldn't reproduce today.
I genuinely believe that technology is what's going to advance mankind. Yes, nature plays its part, and a lot of people at these conferences don't like the word technology. They think it's the devil. I honestly believe technology is what's going to raise our vibration. It's going to move us into the next century. So with that, are we on a collision course with consciousness, faith, and technology? Is it going to come to a huge crescendo at some point? And what's going to be the impact of that?
I think you're right that technology is going to pull humanity, if we allow it, is going to pull humanity from the difficulties it's experiencing today and raise the consciousness. But it's more, I believe as well that it's a feedback loop, feedback loop. That is, we have to have the consciousness to be able to bring that technology forward as well. So it's important that we raise our awareness and that we can open to new ideas, right? If we're closed, then we'll be stuck with the same level of technology. So I think it's possible that technology will transform humanity and bring us there. It will only be true, however, if we are able to let go of the past, 100 years of concepts and ideas, and allow to open to new ideas and new concepts, which are supported by the evolution that we went through the past, but that can limit us if we don't allow the new ideas and the new understanding to emerge.
I have been extraordinarily interested in this idea that millions, perhaps billions of people on this planet may be having contact. We now call them experiencers, contact with non-human intelligence. I have been intrigued with this idea for quite a few years based on what I've observed personally, and so I recently gave a lecture in Australia to address just that. But rather than making the case conclusively that millions, perhaps billions of people on this planet are having contact, I posed the question. This is something that has absolutely intrigued me, and I do feel that there have been many, many clues and many entry points that would lead to the prospect that this very well may be going on. In my lecture, I approached the idea of phobias perhaps being, or I should say strange phobias, maybe being a clue to contact, where many people may be developing these phobias, not knowing where they're coming from. In fact, I think most people really don't know the root of their fears and their phobias. But several of them that I've looked at, and the evidence seemed overwhelming that the phobias may be stemming from some form of even an abduction scenario. I like to say that we're all abductees or contactees, not all contactees are necessarily abductees. So we're looking at a broad spectrum, still trying to kick the tires and uncover what I can on this, but I am sincerely interested, not just for the sake of novelty, but I think that if we're looking at a mass phenomenon, each and every individual needs to be aware. This is about coming into consciousness and learning about oneself. What relationship do we have, if we're having any, with non-human intelligence? Is this a symbiotic back and forth? What is it that they need from us? What is it that we need from them? And as I've said many times, in searching out these questions, the biggest discovery in this is self-discovery. The biggest discovery is self-discovery. So the research continues. My talk was entitled Unconscious Contact. Are you an experiencer and don't know it? Are you? So the question continues.
Could that then lead to the question, how are we having a spiritual crisis on planet Earth? If we're all having these unconscious kind of potential contacts, is that going to have an effect on the spirituality of mankind at this present time?
I think it is having an effect right now. I don't think it's future tense. I think we're going through a spiritual crisis. There's no question about it. And I think a lot of the crises that we are experiencing is based on the fact that we're not clear on our own history individually, not as a collective, well, a collective as well, but the individual are having anomalous experiences, a range of them. They don't know what bucket to put it in based on what they've been told buckets exist. And as a result, there's a sort of schism that takes place, a sort of dissonance, I suppose, that takes place. And so I would dare say we are in the midst of, interestingly, it's somewhat dichotomous, but I believe we're in a spiritual emergency as well as a spiritual emergence. Perhaps we need to go through these dips and curves in order to come into the fullness of what it really means to be a spiritual individual.
So I think we're heading to a tipping point, or we're probably at tipping point already. And I'm not going to use the word religion, I'm going to use the word faith. And I see faith being kind of an obstacle at the moment to disclosure. Do you see there's like a collision course at the moment with consciousness, disclosure, and faith?
I'm afraid that if we don't understand the common thread that exists within all of these things, disclosure, faith, spirituality, consciousness, that we will be heading into. A collision course is an interesting way of putting it. Certainly, I think we will squander an opportunity to evolve. I really try to be the glass half full person and think of this. I try to be the eternal optimist, but I am concerned. I'm very concerned about people being still so distracted with, I believe, is minutia, the things that we really have no business placing that much of our own consciousness on, and all of these other profound things are happening, and we're not giving them the importance and the attention that it deserves. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but I'm concerned. Faith, we have to ask ourselves a question: what are we having faith in? Is it faith in ourselves? Is it faith in the God that we have been, that each of us have been told, growing up in a religious family, if you had, that the faith is relative to that? I think faith in oneself is the most important of all. And if, again, self-discovery is really at the heart of this, faith in oneself and knowing thyself, we can start to unravel the mystery, including disclosure and what that truly is about and how that's really going to happen. Perhaps we're the ones that hold the keys to ultimate disclosure. So we've got such an opportunity right in front of us, I'm sure, but it's time to have faith in oneself.
I'm going to call us the truth-seeking community. Do we put too much pressure on people who are not where we are spiritually? Not saying we're better or worse than them, but do we have a responsibility to not try and push our beliefs onto non-believers, if you say, people that are not into spirituality? Are we putting too much pressure on those people because there are billions on this planet that are not where we are? Where's our responsibility towards them?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to come back to self. I am an advocate of the sovereign path. I am an advocate, and I am very, very vocal about the fact that we must, though community is utterly important, we are connected. I love to quote David Bohm, we are like whirlpools in a stream. We have identity, we just don't have distinct borders. That being said, as individuals, the commitment, the pressure, if you will, should be on no one but oneself. There's no way we can even impact our neighbors unless we have a full or as much of an investment in self, our own journey. That, I think, by default is going to affect, almost like the 100th monkey, it will affect other individuals just by virtue of us emanating the energy of our own journey. We think of, supposedly there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. I would dare say it's probably closer to 8, getting close to 8 now. We cannot live their lives. We can only live our own lives and trust that if we live our life authentically, we will on some level, non-locally perhaps, affect each individual in some small way. That's called the butterfly effect. So there are a lot of different things going on, still a lot of opportunity, but I say for those that we may feel aren't as spiritual as you feel they need to be, someone once said to me, leave each individual in their own ignorance as their own truth. And I thought that was so powerful. Ignorance not being a bad thing, but just if they're not as spiritual as you think they need to be, that's okay. Everyone's here for their own individual journey.
So is it possible the big bad government, the elites, who are not doing ET disclosure as the UFO community demand, could they actually be the good guys saying, well, actually, the majority of the planet are not ready for that kind of information?
It's interesting that you say that or ask that question, because I've often wondered what role those in some form of power that have some knowledge of non-human intelligence, what role do they play in either the secrecy or the dissemination of information regarding who we're being visited by, or frankly, who's been here longer than us. I don't know what role they play, and this may not directly answer your question, but I'll say this, and this really harkens back to the spirituality question. I have often wondered if we are all actors in a grand play, in a global play. You've got the antagonists, the protagonists, you've got the victims, you've got the heroes, get the real bad guys. What if, this is just a question, those factions, we'll say the government, maybe even the secret government, that have been so hell-bent on keeping secrets from us, or really just keeping truth from us and making it difficult for us, are they really just there to play the role to push us to demand truth, individual truth, truth about humanity in general? In other words, is this universe using certain factions that appear evil to push us, to get us to find ourselves? I don't know that that answers the question immediately, directly, but as you asked that question, that's immediately what I thought of. I don't know that those factions that we deem to be secretive and keeping truth from us, unbeknownst to them, may have a role to play in waking us up by virtue of what they're doing, by giving us the proverbial kick in the butt.
I'm going to give you some words.
Anything you want.
Vibration, frequency, spirit, intelligence, mind, soul, life experiences. Are those the ingredients to consciousness? Or is consciousness something completely different from all those?
You know, I think we have to start with consciousness. When you close your eyes and cut out the world and you have this interior awareness of your being, that is actually the same interior for all people, all creatures. Consciousness is one. Consciousness is singular. And we think we're their personality, you have this, you wear those clothes and this. But when you go interior and become the observer of your mind, which I call consciousness, that is the same in all beings. That's the same. That's the observer, witness, awareness is consciousness, observing the external reality through different individuals. But it's like electricity. Consciousness is like electricity. It's coming through you, so you think it's you being animated by your personality. You're an aspect of consciousness. So you are just the vehicle in this form for what might be called your consciousness, but it's not your consciousness. That's just it's like a lamp having electrical circuits. That's a different manifestation of consciousness, but the source is all the same. And this is what consciousness is. And I believe, they might be updating, but we're connected to the grid of manifestation, which its source is the eternal, all-wise knowing intelligence, which we are.
So what's your soul? Is your soul connected to consciousness? Are they two different entities?
Well, soul, spirit, I think they are different. I think soul is a manifestation of individual experiences. So you have a soul record, they call it Akashic record, but each experience through this vehicle that has identified it as this spirit. So the soul is the child of the spirit. It's the reflection of the spirit. The spirit comes in and has experiences in whatever level of manifestation. The soul records those experiences as feeling, as emotion, as memory. So the soul stays with that spirit. But if you didn't have the soul to record the experience, then there wouldn't be the gaining of wisdom. So the soul recognizes the evolutionary path of having certain lessons in whatever level of manifestation you're in, and says, okay, we've had that. We've experienced jealousy or anger or this. And once you've owned an experience on a soul level, the spirit says, okay, we got that. Moves on to the next thing. So it's all a manifestation of consciousness, but as we are individuated within a spirit awareness, the soul comes in as the memory banks of that spirit.
Can consciousness, can it be seen, touched? Can it be measured?
Anything you can see, touch, measure is not it, because that is the world of illusion. Consciousness can't. The knower cannot be known is a thing that came to me one day. The knower, consciousness, cannot be known. You can't touch it, you can't see it, but it is all those things that you touch, see, and be. You see, the human mind likes to be logical and say, I know what it is. It must be this or this. Well, it's nothing you can define. I mean, I tried to define it here, but as soon as you define it, it's not that, not that, not that, not that. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. You might say the Tao is consciousness, but it's nothing you can know, but it's everything you do know. You see, we can't understand that within human logic. We have to go to another level of awareness to understand the illogics of conscious awareness.
So, because there's going to be people watching this thinking, what's this guy talking about? It's going straight over their head. And how do they accept consciousness? Or do you think it's up to that individual soul, that person on their path, to experience it for themselves and wait for it to happen?
Yeah, there's an evolution in each individual. You know, we start out in kindergarten, we learn to read and write, and then we may graduate to algebra and more higher theories. So we have to take it slowly. Okay, what level are you at? What level can you comprehend in this body right there? Where are you in the steps of awakening?
This subject is a very simple subject, but very difficult to explain, I think. I think for me personally, many people I'd expect, consciousness comes through life experiences, mistakes, emotions, until you realize you can't keep doing the same pattern.
Right.
And then you question your own system, basically.
Yeah, that's evolution. This is what we're all on a personal journey. Even though consciousness is one, the manifestation of it is a journey that each soul takes to awakening the greater self until we actually merge back. We're separate, and the lessons are here to bring us back to the oneness, but when we become one, then we merge back into the consciousness whole. The ocean, the drop goes back into the ocean, but the drop also contains the ocean. So we are the totality of all that is within this individual thing, because you're a consciousness, and we're also pretending to be separate from that. So whatever dramas, personal dramas people might be experiencing, yes, that's part of the lesson, but it's also not getting attached to that. If you can, it's not easy to do. You get attached to, my girlfriend left me, or this and that, and those feel real, and they are real, but on the bigger picture, we're the observer of that reality. So it's like we're listening to the guy on the radio. That's our monkey mind telling us our human dramas, and you can step back and say, well, I'm not that.
Do you think consciousness has been suppressed on humanity?
I think it has been suppressed, misaligned, co-opted by religions. I think we haven't been really taught who we really are as human beings, and that's the most important education we can have. What is the essence of the soul that's experiencing incarnation? What is that? And then, why aren't we taught that? Because if we knew who we really were, we wouldn't be controlled. We would say, I want to follow my passion no matter what, because I'm immortal and I know I exist forever, and this is what I've incarnated to do. So, yeah, we have to overcome our conditioning and do it anyway. Do what you're here to do anyway.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to go down the conspiracy.
No, I don't like that either. But there is.
But do you think, the food has been manipulated, medications manipulated to affect our vibration, our frequency, because that is real and that can be measured. So you think that is a tool or a weapon against mankind to suppress the consciousness? I don't think it's that
conscious, if we're going to use the word consciousness. I don't think the manipulation is. I think systems got in place through dogma, and that sort of has snowballed into this is just how things are. So what's happening now at places like Conscious Life here in LA is that people are starting to wake up and say, no, that's not necessarily how things have to be, just because they were like that, just because, women were second-class citizens, or, ethnic minorities weren't given a right to vote, or, so many things are changing now because we're seeing the equality of all sentient beings and maybe non-sentient beings.
I think we're at a tipping point for mankind. I really do. Do you think technology is going to work for us or against us? Again, is it going to suppress us, the technology? I mean, the children now, they are living in a digital world.
Well, technology has always been a double-edged sword ever since our first technological discovery. You know what that was? That was fire. So fire, like you rub two sticks, you create a fire, that could warm you up or it could burn your hut down. So it's always been a balance between caution and usefulness. The technology. So, like, yes, digital phones are an extension of what we're capable of doing. And you can get lost in it. So we always have to come back, and I need to remind myself too, get back to the body, get back to the realness, and don't get lost in the digital world. But it is a tool to help accelerate everything. Just think of how much more you can do with your digital phone that you couldn't do before you had a digital phone. You can make contact, talk to people, but then you get obsessed with it. So we always have to come back to put the phone down, put it down, walk away from the phone. It's like that. Put it down, walk. I mean, I left my house the other day without my phone. I really thought, first moment, I thought I was free. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm lost. No one's going to know where I am. And then there was freedom again. So you have to decondition our own conditioning. So yes, they're tools. And we have to know that they're tools. And we're the person giving the power to those tools. They're not having power over us. But it's hard because we get bored, we get obsessed. So I think Thomas Jefferson said, the price of freedom is constant vigilance. So this is what we have to do. We have to be vigilant with our technologies and say, I'm using it as a tool, and that's not who I am. It's a test.
What about those that are not awakened, if you like, to that, and they get sucked into the system?
Not only sucked into the system, they're, I don't want to use people in my family, but the window to the world was their television set. That they wouldn't even help in their blinds. They just watched. That was all they knew, what was coming through the mass media. So, yeah, we're here at this expo and around the world and traveling to festivals, we're talking to each other, but there is a world out there that doesn't just have to sit and drink beer and watch the football game. I mean, they can if they want to, because they don't know there's anything else to do. If we could awaken just a small minority and say, you're here to have a really exciting life, then that would change things.
Okay. Do you think humanity is having a spiritual crisis at this moment in time?
Yeah.
Is that because of our collective consciousness changing the system, if you like?
Absolutely. We are at a major, major crossroads where we can choose to wake up or we can choose to go back to sleep. But I think it's too late to go back to sleep. Definitely climate extremes are happening. This is the coldest winter they've had in LA in a long time. It's rain and floods and fires. We have to wake. Nature is saying, hey, wake up. And the ETs are here to say, hey, wake up. And technology is here to say, don't go back to sleep. And so we're at a major crossroads because we can't go unconscious anymore. There's too much at stake. There's too many species being exterminated from the planet. And so unless we act now, I don't want to say it's too late because I think there's always hope, but I think we need to become as conscious in consciousness as we can, because this is not the 11th hour, it's the 12th hour.
I mean, there's around the world, there's an epidemic of anxiety, depression, stress. Mental health is probably the top of all medical kind of charts at the moment. Probably once upon a time we would have said midlife crisis. But do you think it's actually the spiritual crisis for humanity, not a midlife crisis? Yeah,
it was always a spiritual crisis. Midlife was always like, okay, what did people do with their lives? They waited, they made all this money, and then they empty. I just read a great quote that some people are so poor, all they have is money. So, we're not here just for that. Money's a tool, and people have had stress because they haven't been able to make enough money. They're survivally. Even if they have millions, they're still coming from survival. So it's a state of awareness that we can turn around. So it's like people are stressed because they've lived the old dogma. You don't really need a lot to make you happy. It's nice to have, good food, nice conditions to live in, but that's not really what makes you happy. Look at all these movie stars that kill themselves or are miserable or are antidepressants. You would think that those people, the chosen ones, are happy, and they're not. So what makes people happy? Self-containment, self-content, being present with life and reality as it is.
See, wouldn't it be wonderful if that was taught in schools?
I have a friend who's bringing ideas of relationship and consciousness to elementary and high schools. So
I think it takes most people maybe to the late 30s, early 40s to awaken. Wouldn't it be nice to happen at the age of 10?
It'd be nice to happen, to be born, to know that there's this possibility that you don't have to be sucked up by the matrix, that the matrix is being dismantled as more people wake up to what consciousness is. This is the revolution that's happening in a good way. It's waking up to who we've always been. And that's exciting. So, the biggest movement in the country, or one of them, is being spiritual and not religious. So we have to step out of the box. Krishnamurti, you know who he is? He was with the Theosophical people. Anyway, he was supposed to be picked to be the avatar of the world. He says, no, it's not me. It's by the Theosophists in the early 1920s. And he went around and actually became a spiritual teacher, saying, if you call yourself a Christian or Muslim, Jew, that's an act of violence that separates you from the rest of humanity. We're humans trying to live a human experience.
I think the word spirituality and I'm spiritual is becoming quite fashionable now.
It's fashionable, and then of course it's been overused, and now people are saying don't use it because it's been so overused.
Was there another word? What other word can we use for spiritual?
I think consciousness is also being overused.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's just being human. The Dalai Lama said, kindness is my religion. Mm-hmm. Being kind. I think that is a good word. Nonviolent, aware, loving, peace. All those things that we take out of the spiritual market. So if you're spiritual, you think you have to be a certain way, or meditate, or pray, and you don't have to be any of that. You just have to be with people for who they are. Look at them in the eye and say, yes, I feel you. That's spiritual. When you feel somebody.
Yes.
So empaths are making a big comeback here.
Do you think the vibration, the frequency of humanity is going to rise with or without us? Because does our place in the solar system, Mother Earth, traveling through space, does that impact us?
Well, of course it impacts. We're coming in, some people say, the Aquarian age. We're moving, we're accelerating this frequency within our own being and in our own mind. And so this is what's creating the crisis on the planet, because I talk to people all the time. They call me up and they're saying they're having a spiritual awakening. They're seeing energy, they're talking to ETs. And some of them think they're going crazy. I say, no, you're awakening the greater mind. You're here and bringing in why you first came here as part of this joy of creation, is to awaken the greater mind, to know that there's something more. So the vibration of the earth is accelerating our earth bodies. These are earth. You're living inside the earth right there. And so as the vibrational frequency, let's say the Schumann resonance, is changing, it's awakening our dormant potential. It's like, did you ever come on a computer and you suddenly realize you have a software program you didn't know you had before? That's what's waking up. People are suddenly realizing they could be psychic, they can be empathic, they could be a healer. So you have to dismantle the old program of personality. Personality can't run when you're doing those other higher sophisticated programs. So you dismantle the ego, the ego, it's me. And you run this other software for healing, compassion, love. But, those two programs conflict in their running. You can't do it for yourself. And everyone is also an extension of you.
Synchronicities, that was one of my first stages. 11/11, for example. Just things kept happening and repeat patterns. Did you believe in the synchronicities with numbers? And
I think synchronicities is know that you're living in a magical world. It's not random. Coincidental, everything. When time lines up like that and you see 11, it means you're on the right path. So I used to get it with names all the time, like strange names, like two people from two different parts of the world by the name of Forrest would call me right after each other. How does that happen? Or just common names like in emails following each other. I don't know what that means, but it sort of is a sign to me that things are lining up, and follow those leads, because the universe is showing you a path through the synchronistic awakening of your consciousness melding with the creation out there. So it's not just all being generated from inside our mind. Our reality is co-created by the flow of the field, if you want to call it that, the emanations of creation interacting with us. So the synchronicities are showing us that, oh yeah, you're right on time. You're right there, right on target there.
So watch, listen, and feel these.
Absolutely. I mean, Carlos Castaneda talk about watch how the crows are flying, watch what they're saying, Of course, you can get a little obsessed with, like, what did that mean over there? What? Oh, yeah, I found that there. I mean, it can get a little neurotic, like, oh, yeah. And so just let it come. And it's kind of, it mostly is working for you.
Yeah. Are we on a collision course with consciousness and faith? Because they are going to collide at some point.
I think they're not necessarily divergent. I think there is a point where I don't know how you define faith, but there's a faith in who we really are. And I think if we can pull the faith thing out of the religious-based dogmas, and faith is really about the kingdom of heaven is within, and that's like the mystery we are. If we have faith in the mystery of being, then it's not necessarily a collision course. It's actually a parallel path, or maybe even the same path. So it's just how dogmatic you are about faith, and how much you want to put that faith in the self, not the ego self, but the self that is incarnating in that body. That's where they line up. So we can use both.
You've mentioned ET once, and I think ET is involved in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is consciousness going to lead us to disclosure? We're not going to have one man or woman, president or world leader telling us ET is here, always has been here. Do you think it is going to be in a collective consciousness when it's at the right time, it will happen?
Yeah, I do. I think the ET disclosure is an inside job. Means it comes from within, the awakening of other consciousnesses on other vibrations. That's all I feel ETs are. And they're knocking on people's doors. They're knocking on your brains to say, wake up, there's something more happening here. So a lot of people are getting these ET downloads, and I think it's really something to watch. They're saying, I'm hearing voices, I'm getting messages. So listen to that. This is key to our next stage of evolution. ETs are manifesting in our reality at an alarming rate, which is all positive, I think. I think if we put the world in terms of negative and positive, I just did that, but in this duality, I think we're missing the point. The world, the universe is not good or bad. Those are very limited labels. The universe is multifaceted. And it's all for our evolution. Whatever it is. So ETs are here, but they're not like manifesting on the White House lawn because people don't know how to deal with it. It's a slow process of a individual waking up and saying, I just had a strange dream. I just saw a UFO. And as it becomes prolific throughout the population of the planet, then it's like when they finally do make themselves known, it's like, oh, of course. Right, they're here. We knew that. What's the big deal? So we're graduating to a next level of vibration, saying we are part of a cosmic race of beings. And we always have been. We are actually the ET. We're actually extraterrestrial. Our DNA shows that we're nothing like anything that is on this planet. So we're waking up to ourselves. And we need a new language. That's the problem with when you call something a UFO, unidentified flying object. It's unidentified, but we think we know what that means. We don't know what that means. So the big problem I have with other spiritual teachers, I say, what do you think of UFOs? They go, oh, what do you want to get into that? I say, because that's the key to our awakening. The old dogma spiritualists say, no, it's all consciousness and it's great and that's all you need to know. But something is adding to the evolution of what consciousness is. You could sit in a cave, but the modality of consciousness is changing. So we're getting a new download of what consciousness is. It's not static. It's ongoing and evolving, and it's bringing out, ironically, you know what the ETs are bringing out? More of our humanity. It's igniting more of our capacity to feel, think, be, and love, in a sense.
I think ET would be the key to unlocking consciousness for everybody.
It is, but not every, you're out there with, and two
Yeah.
people may see a UFO, one, or be in the sky, and one person doesn't see it. So it is the key, because it's awakening the greater mind. The ETs are not mental manifestations, but they're using our higher faculties of awareness. Like, if you're talking to a dog, you're not going to bark at them.
Some humans do.
They do, but that's not communicating. So ETs are communicating us in a higher telepathic frequency that's starting to come online for some people and saying, wow, I just got this thought from somewhere. So they're not talking in the language we're used to. We have to develop a new facility of awareness to make the contact that will be the internal disclosure. And that's what's most exciting here. If you can let go of the fear and the known and open up to the unknown, we have a whole new world waiting for us.
I'm looking forward to the answer to the next question, because I think you're a very free spirit.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to the question.
You look like a free spirit. You sound like a free spirit. You are living proof you can be a free spirit.
I try to be free.
Now, I think there's one emotion that keeps everybody down, and they can't be a free spirit. So how do we beat the emotion of fear?
Well, it's not that you acknowledge what the fear is, and you do it anyway. That's what they said, what courage is. Courage is not denying the fear. It's like having the fear and going to battle, or whatever that courage is, or living your truth, or living the reality. I wasn't really supported in my free lifestyle. I had to earn that, just being in New York and doing what I want to do, and doing little video jobs, and then just starting a YouTube channel on no budget. I mean, still not much of a budget, but I don't know. I didn't think of fear. I thought of more, I think, excitement. That might be the way to overcome it, because fear is only what you know, or what you think you know. It's not about what you don't know. There's no fear in the unknown. There's only projection of the known onto the unknowns. But if you can go into the unknown with wonder and excitement, that does away with all the fear, because there's something new you could learn and experience. And that overrides all the fear factor. For me, it's like, wow, this world is so complex and multifaceted. I want to know it all.
And would you put the fear of financial loss? Because I think that's the biggest fear, isn't it? Money, the control system, basically.
Don't let that stop you. I didn't let it stop me. I followed my passion, and, I didn't have any money. I hardly have any now. But, no, I've just always done what I wanted, and somehow the universe supports you. I think it says, take one step towards God, God takes 1,000 steps. Well, that's faith, that's trust. But if you follow your passion, it's not about a blind trust. It's like, I'm doing what I've come here to do, and I know the universe will take care of me. It's like just knowing. It's knowing that, you're here for a reason, and maybe doing this, and this is your passion. And if you follow your passion, you're an agent of the universe, and that's why you came here. You didn't come here to live at home in fear behind closed doors and be an accountant, or whatever you were going to be.
Never be an accountant. Somebody that is just awakening now, because it is scary.
It is, it can be.
What little bit of advice can we give to somebody that is starting to question reality?
If things are starting to not make sense, and everything you used to know about the world is kind of disappearing, that's a good thing. Some people think they're losing their mind, but you know what? You are losing your mind. You're losing the old mind that tried to keep everything in order, in place, in a system that didn't work. So what's happening is the old form is cracking. You're like a snake shedding its skin. You're awakening into a renewed sense of being. And so just go with what's coming. If you're suddenly finding yourself seeing auras or hearing voices, you're not going crazy, you're going sane, and you're waking up to a reality that's always been here beyond the ego monkey mind. This is the true nature of reality. That's why I call my show New Realities, because you might go through fear, but that's only because you're getting rid of the old programming. And when that kicks in, know it's a good sign, and you're in company of the mystics that have lived for thousands of years that are welcoming you into their midst and saying, thank you for crossing that bridge into the unknown, because this is where it gets exciting.
And where can people follow you in your work and interviews?
So my whole work has been about renewed perceptions, just very much about what I was saying here about waking up, because what we don't know what we don't know. And so if you think you know it all, you're not fully awakened to the possibilities that there's more to reality. That's why I say spirituality in the old sense is only a small part of it. There's the great mystery of being, and this is what I've sought to not figure out, but just discover. So I do shows on a platform on YouTube, youtube.com/New Realities. New Realities is the company that, or the forum that I investigate under. So it's all a new reality when you wake up to the fact that the old reality wasn't working the way you thought it was. So get out of being safe, secure, and predictable realities and know there are some new realities waiting to happen. And enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Erich von Daniken. I'm the author of Chariots of the Gods and many, many other books. What's this all about? Some thousands of years ago, I am absolutely sure, some extraterrestrials visited our planet Earth. Our ancestors at that time were Stone Age people. They could not understand what was going on, so they believed, erroneously, that these extraterrestrials are some gods. Of course, we all know there are no gods, but they believed that the visitors from outer space are gods. This is what I'm talking and writing about. This is my research since more than 50 years. And I present you all the results of my research in wonderful conferences like this one.
Wow, 50 years. We're celebrating 50 years of your first book, Chariots of the Gods. Why you? Was you chosen to do that book? Was it your destiny? Because to do that book with the contents of that book 50 years ago was such an incredibly brave thing to do. So why do you think it was you that had this thought and delivered this book?
Well, I'm often asked, why have I published Chariots of the Gods? I was a young man at that time. How did it happen? What brought me to the idea of all these visitors from outer space? I was educated in Switzerland as a strict Catholic in a boarding school led by Jesuits. And of course, I was a deep believer in God. I still am a deep believer in God. All true, I do not understand what God is. But God, for me, as a young man, had to have some qualities. For example, God makes no mistake. God does not need a vehicle in which to move around from point A to point B. God is all over. Now in my high school, we had to make translations of the Bible from one language, Latin, to the other language, Greek. And I realized that the God in the Bible, he does use some vehicles to move around. Vehicles which descend with smoke and fire and trembling and loud noise and all these things. And he makes mistakes. So I simply had doubts in my own education, in my own religious belief. And I wanted to know if other communities in antiquity have similar stories than we, Christian or Jewish, have it. That was the beginning of Chariots of the Gods. I wrote Chariots of the Gods while I was a manager of a first-class hotel in Switzerland. The book has become a bestseller worldwide, so I stopped my hotel business and I was searching, researching for all the last 50 years, always in the same direction. Were we visited by beings from outer space? In the meantime, I'm absolutely sure I have enough information, enough indication, and enough proof to say, yes, we were visited.
Was there a time 50 years ago? Was there any moments of doubt when you first started?
Yeah, doubts in religion, you see. You see, after the translations of parts of the Bible, when I understood that other religions have similar stories than we,
in other religions also some beings descended from the sky with smoke, fire, trembling, loud noise. So I was enthusiastic. I had a feeling inside like living on a volcano. I had to go out with this message. We were wrong in the past. We have to think our religion and our history over. In the meantime, I am not the only figure who writes about the gods from outer space. Many colleagues worldwide have published books, have done researches, and I'm happy to know many of them. I'm sure this sort of research will continue. It's a new paradigm. We have to change our way of thinking. We were visited by beings from outer space, and other authors are helping me in this belong.
How do you see technology changing? Because the technology we have today, going back nearly 50 years ago when you was around, the technology is so different now. How do you see that benefiting us moving forward, revisiting some of your old research with new technologies?
Why have these extraterrestrials come to our planet some thousands of years ago? And are they back again? When they left, a long time ago, they promised to our forefathers, we will return in a far future. And for myself, I am absolutely sure they have returned. We are under observation. What's the purpose? What for? They want us to create technology, high technology. They want that we construct gigantic spaceships, that we continue the game, that we spread out in the whole universe with intelligence. The whole universe should be infected, so to say, with intelligence, so that we know each other, that we learn from each other, that the communication starts to flow all over the universe. That's why we need technology. That's why we develop technology. And in some cases, I'm quite sure they help us in developing technology. We just don't understand how they help us.
So not only is this year the 50th anniversary of Chariots of the Gods, on Saturday the 20th of July this year, it's the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. The first man on the moon. Is it possible that wasn't the first man on the moon? Do you think our ancient brothers and sisters already had the technology back then and they went to the moon?
I know in ancient holy books, especially in ancient Indian holy books like the Mahabharata, the 5th book called the Mausala Purva, there some humans were out there in space, taken by the extraterrestrials. Some humans, some thousands of years ago, were already on the moon. They visited other solar systems. How do I know this? Because they told it. They told it in their books. In many cases, our ancestors were in contact with extraterrestrials, and our ancestors asked the extraterrestrials, where do you come from? They always pointed to the sky. They always pointed to the stars. In no case they said, well, we come from Atlantis, or we come from another continent, or maybe we come from another time, we are time traveler. No, they always pointed to the stars. They even give some names, but we cannot use these names. We don't know what they mean. And some of the humans were taken away with the extraterrestrials. Some of them have returned, others have not returned. You maybe remember in the Bible, there was a prophet called Elijah. Elijah left our planet Earth in a flying chariot. The same thing with the prophet like Enoch. Enoch, before the great flood, he left our planet in a fiery chariot. And according to tradition, Enoch and Elijah did not die on our planet Earth. One day they should return to die here on Earth. The same thing happened in other traditions, in Old Indian and even in Central American traditions.
So,
Did you watch the moon landing live on television, Erich?
no, I had no time this evening. No.
No. Tell me about this new project you're working on, because there's many places in the world that amaze me. But the Nazca lines, there's something spectacular going on there. And you're working on a new project regarding Nazca. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
One of the greatest mysteries of our planet lies in Peru, down in the south of Peru. The place is called Nazca. Nazca is a little village. At the same time, Nazca is a gigantic desert. When you fly over the desert of Nazca, the first thing you see are figures behind you. Figures of fishes, monkeys, spiders, humans, and so on. The next thing you see are gigantic lines, starting abruptly, ending abruptly, looking like airstrips seen from the air. Some of them are very, very long. The longest of it is 28 kilometers long. Now, the mystery of Nazca has never been solved in archaeology. Archaeologists explain us how they could have made these figures in the ground. And in fact, it is not complicated to make these figures, to scratch the surface away and to create a spider or a monkey. What the real problem is are these gigantic lines, because in some of the cases, the top of the mountains is cut up completely to put this line, airstrip looking line. And that's the real mystery. And there are many of these lines. Now there is an Erich von Daniken Foundation, and we have created and assembled 6 different universities. Some are specialists in chemistry, others are specialists in archaeology, others are specialists in satellite surviving, etc. And we want to solve this mystery of Nazca. We have composed a troupe of scientists which will go there next fall, somewhere in October, and try to solve the mystery of Nazca. What is the composition of these lines? What is the chemical composition? What is beneath these lines? How are they made, etc.? Where is the debris? Where is the what is left from the cutting of the mountain? So for all this, we need, of course, money. Altogether, more than 240,000 euros. But some of the university pay some of this money. What is left is roughly 60,000 euros. We need 60,000 euros to have the scientific community going to Nazca to make these analyses of all these chemical stuff and all these mysteries. So, if possible, please help us. We have founded a crowdfunding. You can join us by helping to create this scientific expedition to solve the mystery in Nazca in Peru. Please join us. Another mystery on this planet is, of course, the Great Pyramid. According to Egyptology, the Great Pyramid was constructed roughly 4,500 years ago by a pharaoh with the name of Cheops. But there are old Arabian traditions which clearly say it was not Cheops. The Great Pyramid was constructed before the Great Flood by a man with the name of Enoch. Enoch, again, is the same figure which, according to the Bible, was the first human who disappeared from our planet in a fiery chariot. Now, there is a book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch, he describes what happened. He was taken away by the extraterrestrials. He learned their language. They taught him in writing. They dictated him book. And all these books are now today in the Great Pyramid. It was Enoch who made the plans, the engineering planning for the Great Pyramid. This is written in different Arabian books. So inside the Great Pyramid, we will within the next years definitely find more rooms, more shafts, and there we will find the books of Enoch. This will be a complete new revelation. We will understand this planet was visited by beings from outer space, and they will return, and we are part of these extraterrestrials. Of course we are humans. Of course we have our evolution on this planet. But not only. There was always an interference, a mixture. The gods created the humans according to their own image. We are part. We are product of evolution, but not only. We are a mixture. We are, so to say, sons of the gods.
I think this is a really important question. Is disclosure, is the truth on a crash course, like a crash collision with faith? There's going to be a point in time
Yeah.
where the truth and faith meet, and I think that's going to be quite explosive. Are we ready for that point?
In our present time, we are not ready for the contact with extraterrestrials, but we are prepared. We will be ready sooner or later. At the moment, for example, extraterrestrials with their technology, they could easily make a landing, let's say, in a big football stadium. The cameras are there already, so the whole world would see what's going on. But they don't do it. They protect us. They know we would turn up completely crazy. And you know, all our big religions, be it the Christian religion, be it the big Muslim religion, they would be all against the extraterrestrials. I'm sure figures like the Holy Pope would be on camera and say, don't believe these beings. This is a sort of devil. So we have to be prepared for the visit and the contact of extraterrestrials. And this preparation is going on. The spirit of time has changed and will change slowly to come to the point we are not alone. We were visited, and here they are back again.
You obviously travel the world, going to different conferences, and you've probably done hundreds of conferences. Why is America different to the rest of the world? Why do we're at the Conscious Life Expo, we go Contact in the Desert, 15,000 people are turning up at these conferences. All the UFO sightings, the contactees, all seems to be America. It all seems to be about America with ufology.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why does America get so much attention within this community?
On this planet, we have different cultures. Some of the cultures are technologically more advanced than the other cultures. Some of the cultures are free, more free than the other cultures. Some cultures, because of their religion, they have stubbornly to believe something. They don't have the permission to think freely. Now, in our countries, and I'm from Europe, from Switzerland, it was for many, many decades, it was ridiculed. All that discussion about extraterrestrials, about UFOs. In our society, when you worked with UFO people, when you confessed in public, I saw a UFO, or even I was abducted, then you were completely ridiculed. In the United States, the way of thinking was always freer than in the rest of the world. That's why here in the United States, especially here in America, we have a freer way of thinking. They are ready to speak about these things without being afraid to be ridiculed. That's the difference. I hope sooner or later no one has to be afraid to be ridiculed when he confesses that he saw a UFO or even that he was in contact with some extraterrestrials.
What advice, Erich, can you give to maybe, because lots of children are getting into these subjects at an early age now, so if there's a 16-year-old watching this in his bedroom at home on YouTube, which is most probably likely, and he wants to start researching and living the life you've had, what advice would you give them in this day and age?
When you are a young person, I suggest learn languages. Go to the university, learn one of the old languages. There are only a few people on this planet who know how to translate cuneiforms or Maya writings of the old people. If you know, then you can make translations. And we need translations of the old texts, translations made with new eyes, with fresh eyes. You see, in the past, the professors who translated, for example, the book of Enoch, or translated parts of the book of the Bible, they were very serious and reasonable persons. It was never a question of crashing down something. But at their time, some 100 years ago, they knew nothing about space travel, nothing about flying machines, nothing about going to the moon, to the Mars, etc. So their translation were always made in a religious manner. We should go away from this thinking and make new translations with our modern knowledge. That's why I propose, whenever you have a chance, young man or young girl, learn an old language, or study archaeology. Go out there in the field, make your own excavation, find your own solutions, and go to public. Say what you found.
Let's talk about consciousness, because I think we're very close to a tipping point with consciousness on so many levels.
Yeah.
What does attaining complete consciousness actually mean? Because I know you've used that term. What does it mean?
Right. It's what I'm getting. It's like responsibility. It's taking accountability for what it is that you are doing. We are conscious. Full consciousness means we are acting in a very aware state, in a very mindful state of who we are and what we're doing. We can no longer say, oh, I didn't know, or I don't, things like that. And we are far too long now because we're creating, and we know that. And that's what I feel like that means. It's just at that point of taking responsibility for what we're doing.
So the reason I said tipping point as well is because is humanity having a spiritual crisis due to our collective consciousness expanding? Are we on a crash course at the moment, like a collision?
I don't see it that way. No, I see it as, it may look chaotic, but things that go through transformation look chaotic for a while. They look like they're completely tearing apart, but it's just making new. So that's how I see it. It's just people trying to figure out what's going on. And then the ones before them that have already gone through that are just helping the others. And it's just a lot happening at once.
This is what I love about you, Julie. You simplify things so much.
Oh, well, good.
But that's what the layman, the person on the street need. They need it to be in simple formats. How would you see technology affecting our consciousness, especially with the children? Because 10-year-olds are addicted to technology, and that's their generation, so who are we to take that away from them? But do you see that having an impact on their consciousness?
Here's what I see, and I this was given to me as a message like a couple of years ago. It has something to do with these children, because of where they're coming from, they're not as comfortable being with people and communicating with people. These little gadgets and things, that's an easier world for them to fit into. So that's why they're addicted to it. And so, but it's a matter of, but they are here, and they are here to be part of this plane. So that's where it's a matter of balancing that out a little bit. But and actually they're the ones that are creating it. And a bit of it is they're showing us how they're creating their worlds, see? When they do that, well, they're just showing us how to do it too. You just make that your world.
Simple again.
Exactly.
Now, I think most people on the planet, the biggest emotion that causes everybody issues is fear.
Yes.
Relationship fear, financial fear, especially financial fear. How can we cope with that? How can somebody deal with fear?
By knowing that fear is not real. It's nothing. It's all an illusion. Fear is just, it's false. That acronym or whatever they say, it's an acronym. I can't talk. But it's false evidence appearing real. So it's a matter of looking through it, looking at the bigger picture of it. It's actually what they showed me before is you just shed light on it. And when you do that, you will understand exactly what it is. And there's nothing to be feared. We only fear things that we don't know. But when you expose it and look at it and really say, hey, what are you all about? You're shedding light on it. And then you understand exactly what's going on, and there's nothing to fear anymore. That's all it is. It's just things hiding behind cloaks.
We've got a worldwide epidemic at the minute with mental health, which is great that that's being highlighted. But why do you think all of a sudden mental health, with depression, anxiety, stress, why are so many people being affected by that right now? And what advice can you give to them on a spiritual level?
They know they're here for a reason. And so, they're just not sure what it is. They know they're being called and pulled, but they don't understand what it is. That's why conferences like this are so good, because people can see, oh, this is it. They see others feeling the same way or have been there and are now doing something. They understand their place and what they're here to do. You are here for some reason. Some people are just here to bring energy in. That's okay, but what I've been told over and over again is, because people are saying, I need to know what I'm supposed to do, and that can bring a lot of that depression. And what they've said, it's so beautiful, is you're here to bring that energy in, right? So we want really good, positive energy. And the best way to do that is go do what makes you happy. Do your bliss, what you're passionate about. That's not the direct element to everything else. The direct element is by doing your bliss, your passion, you are excited, you feel good, that brings more energy, which is what the rest of the world needs. See? Isn't it? It's cool.
So for lots of people then, I mean, because we've got lots of illnesses as well around the world, cancer, and do you think people, I mean, that can be a trigger, people being stuck in the job they don't want to be, stuck in the relationship they don't want to be in, the fear keeps them trapped within that world. Right. Can that then bring out illnesses within people? Absolutely, and that's what my book is about. Soul Speak, the language of your body. That's exactly what it's saying, is your body's trying to tell you things, you know, and it could be you've trapped yourself in different places, or you really want to go another direction, but you've got to stay here for whatever reason. And it's trying to tell you, hey, no, this is what you want to do. That's your dream. Go do it. And it's pushing you that, because you're really eating yourself up inside when you don't do what you really want to do. Things like that. Can you understand why it is hard for people to make that? Have you been in that position where you've had to make that jump from fear into bliss? Yeah. I was in a position, it's like they had to show me all the disguises of fear. I had to understand fear. And so I was put in a position that I would know that. And then when I understood what I was being shown, I exposed it, and then it was done. That's what it was. I just had to understand it. So absolutely I understand. That's why I don't mean to say it so like it's nonchalant. It's just I have been through it and I have seen it, and that's all it is. I still get caught in some things because that's human. That's where we are. This planet runs on fear. That's what it does. It loves to do that. But it's our job to know that that's just an illusion. It's not real. And just look beyond it. Look at the bigger picture and don't buy into it. And that's the challenge, but that's what we have control over. Yes. So, as Mother Earth at the moment is traveling through the universe, is that having an impact on consciousness? The planets, the stars, the sun? How does it work? That's good, because my brother and I have been talking about that a lot, and we feel like that probably is very much what's maybe accelerating some things, because we're essentially kind of going into new territories out here in space, and then we're being hit with different frequencies, and I think it does have an impact on accelerating a lot of the moves and the jumps that we're making.
Yeah, I mean, your mum Dolores used to talk about the new Earth, and I really think from 10 years ago, it feels different. People seem different. It's as if we are in a new Earth. We've moved into a different vibration.
Absolutely.
And that's not just the truth community. I think the world is
they
going
see
that
it.
way. I mean, you can see the riots that are rippling around the world now. I mean, would you put that down to a whole shift in consciousness?
Right, absolutely. And that's, you have to pull it back. You have to look at the bigger picture, and that's when you can see more of, like you're saying, the shift and everything. And a lot of times you have to go back in time, like you're doing, and then look back to now to again see that, oh yeah, I see, it shifted. It wasn't just an evolution, or it wasn't just a day-by-day thing. No, it shifted, because you can see, we didn't used to do things like whatever back here, but then something happened and it just moved. So, and that's the shift.
So what is the overwhelming message that your guides are kind of giving you at the moment? Is there a particular pattern to what they're...
Yeah, do what makes you happy. Be happy. Be joy. Dance. That's the biggest message. Remember who you are, and remember to be in joy. They said, we came here to bring all this good and bring all this energy here, but then we get caught up and we forget to dance, we forget to laugh, we get caught up in it. And it's like, just remember to bring the joy, remember to laugh, have fun. We are here having this experience. That's okay. So have the experience, but just don't get caught up in it.
We're not here for that long either, are we?
No, we are not. It's just a blink of an eye when from that perspective, yes.
One of my favourite quotes was from Wayne Dyer, and I think it was, "Don't die with the music still inside
Oh,
you."
I love it. I love it, yes. And that's, there again, see, the music's big.
Yes. It can change your emotions.
Yes.
Like that, can't it? So.
And so can dancing. Dancing's a big one. They like for us to dance. They want us to move.
You've got to overcome fear to get to the dance level.
Well, if you just start moving something, I think it'll help lighten you enough till you can do it. So it's hard to be fearful when you're doing a big jig.
So let's end this. If you could look into the camera, because I know there's going to be lots of people listening to this, because there's lots of new people awakening by the week, it seems. So many people are questioning our reality. And I think the conspiracy thing is almost dying. I think we're moving sort of away from conspiracy stories. We're awakening now to being spiritual and being free.
Right.
But it is hard. So could you just look at the camera and maybe tell them people a bit of advice on how to get through those 6 months, 12 months, 18 months while you escape the matrix?
Right, okay. One, okay, they're helping me here. Okay, they're delivering the message. This is a message that's come through several times. It's like, just be here. Don't. When you keep trying to escape and leave, then you're not really fulfilling why you're here. And that's why it's like you have one foot in one dimension and one in another. And that can be very discombobulating in a time where we're doing all these changes. It's okay. You are fine. You're waking up. That is wonderful. Many wonderful things are happening to you. Don't be afraid of them. This is why you came here, to remember who you are and to help humanity and to help Earth. And you're just waking up to who you are and what you can do. You have wonderful, wonderful abilities coming in. And if that's happening to you and you don't understand it, just know that those are your innate rights. This is natural. It's very natural, and everyone has this happening to them. So this is wonderful that you're waking up, and I welcome you, and just keep growing with it, and do not be afraid of it, and just go day by day and just flow with it. That's really it. Just flow with it. Don't be afraid of it. It's wonderful.